Everyone thought she was the witness. Until the courtroom watched the evidence, and Judge Judy realized she might have been the one behind the wheel all along. The case looked simple at first. A parked car had been smashed in the middle of the night. Nobody saw the crash happen with their own eyes. There was damage, there was anger, there was a totaled vehicle, and there were people pointing fingers so fast. It felt like the truth had been buried before the hearing even began. But the dangerous thing about a courtroom is this. You can walk in with a story. You can walk in with excuses. You can even walk in with photographs you think will save you. But once Judge Judy starts pulling on one loose thread, the whole lie can unravel in front of everyone. And that day it unraveled brutally. On one side stood Ms. Connors, the owner of the damaged car. Her vehicle had been parked while her daughter used it for work. Everything seemed normal until around midnight, when the daughter was told something was wrong outside. She walked out and saw the kind of damage that makes your stomach drop before your brain can even process it. The car had been hit badly, not scratched, not bumped, hit hard enough that the repair bill would later come close to $4,000. And because the car owner did not actually witness the crash, she had only one thing to hold on to: evidence. There was video footage from cameras near the workplace. There were statements. There were accusations. And somewhere inside that tangled mess was one question Judge Judy wanted answered. Who was driving the car that caused the damage? Because according to the people in court, the vehicle involved belonged to Gwen, but Gwen said she was not driving that night. She had stayed home. Her car had been taken out by people she trusted. And that is where the entire case turned dark. The people involved had been at a nightclub. Late at night, alcohol was involved. Two young people, Taylor and Jerry, had been inside Gwen's car. Taylor admitted she drove the car to the nightclub earlier that evening. But when it came to who drove away from the club and who was behind the wheel when the crash happened, suddenly everyone's memory became selective. Taylor's story came out first. She claimed she and Jerry were both drunk. She said she knew she should not be driving. She said she wanted to take a taxi. She said Jerry refused. According to her, he grabbed the keys, took control, and insisted on driving. Now pause right there, because that is where Judge Judy's face changed. Not dramatically, not theatrically. Just enough. That small shift that says, I hear the story, but I don't smell the truth. Taylor tried to sound responsible. She wanted the courtroom to see her as the careful one, the one who knew drinking and driving was wrong, the one who wanted to avoid danger. But there was a problem. Her explanation had too many convenient turns. She said she wanted a taxi, but she had no money. Then she said Jerry had money. Then she said she would pay him back later. Then she added that she tried calling a friend for a ride. Then she said Jerry took the keys. Then she said she got in the car anyway because she felt responsible for Gwen's vehicle. Judge Judy listened, and the longer Taylor spoke, the worse it became. Because sometimes a lie does not collapse because of one huge mistake. Sometimes it collapses because it keeps adding furniture to a room that is already too crowded. Taylor was trying to create a version of events where she was drunk but still responsible, powerless but still aware, concerned about the car but willing to get inside with a drunk driver, broke but planning a taxi ride, afraid but somehow still documenting the night. Judge Judy saw the contradiction immediately. She cut through the performance and pointed out the obvious. Taylor wanted the court to believe she had a detailed, logical, careful conversation while drunk outside a nightclub late at night. A conversation about taxis, repayment, responsibility, keys, and backup rides. And the whole thing sounded like something created after the crash, not before it. Then came Jerry. Jerry did not help himself at first. He stood there smiling, laughing at the wrong times, hands in his pockets like the case was some uncomfortable joke instead of a serious accident involving drunk driving and thousands of dollars in damages. Judge Judy snapped at him. She told him to take his hands out of his pockets. The room laughed. But beneath that laughter was something sharper, because Jerry's attitude made him look guilty. He looked foolish. He looked immature. He looked like exactly the kind of person who might do something reckless at midnight after leaving a club. And Taylor knew that. That may have been why her story was so easy for some people to believe. Jerry looked like trouble. Taylor looked like the witness. But in Judge Judy's courtroom, appearances are not evidence. And then the video came in. The courtroom leaned toward the screen. This was supposed to be the moment everything became clear. The camera footage showed the accident. It showed the movement, the impact, the speed, the chaos of a crash caught from a distance, but it did not clearly show the driver. The video proved the collision happened, but it did not answer the one question everybody needed answered. Who was behind the wheel? For a moment, Taylor's story survived. For a moment, Jerry still looked exposed. And then Taylor made the move she thought would finish him. She handed over photos. She had pictures of Jerry behind the wheel. On paper, that sounded devastating. A photograph of the man driving? That should have been the final nail. But this is where the case shifted from messy to explosive. Judge Judy looked at the photos and asked a simple question. Why did Taylor take them? That question landed like a blade. Because normal people do not usually take evidence photos in the middle of an ordinary ride home. They do not usually capture images of someone driving unless there is a reason. And Taylor's explanation was weak. She said she just took the picture, no big reason, no clear purpose, just because, and that answer did not satisfy the court. Then Jerry finally gave the version of events that changed everything. He admitted something. He said he did drive the car, but not when the crash happened. According to Jerry, Taylor was the one driving during the accident. After the impact, she panicked. Her glasses broke. She became hysterical. She said she could not see. She could not drive. She was crying, upset, and out of control. So Jerry said he took over after the crash. And the second he got behind the wheel, Taylor began taking photos and videos. That was the moment the courtroom energy shifted, because suddenly the photos did not look like proof. They looked like a setup. Think about that. If Taylor had crashed the car, panicked, and then convinced Jerry to take the wheel afterward, those photos would become her escape plan. She could show them later and say, "See, he was driving." That is what made Judge Judy stop and look deeper, because Jerry's story had something Taylor's did not. It had the ugly texture of reality. It was not clean. It did not make him look innocent. In fact, it made him look reckless too. He admitted he took the wheel after drinking. He admitted he made a bad decision. He did not walk in as a perfect victim, and sometimes that is what makes a story believable. A liar often tries to make themselves spotless. A truthful fool admits they were a fool. Judge Judy understood that instantly. She said Jerry should never have gotten into the car. He should never have taken over the wheel. He was wrong. He was careless. He was part of the disaster. But when it came to the actual crash, she believed Taylor was driving. And Taylor's face, her excuses, her sudden explanations, her photos, her attempt to shift blame, all of it began to look less like a witness helping the truth and more like someone trying to outrun responsibility. Then Judge Judy said what everyone watching had slowly started to feel. There was no believable reason for Taylor to suddenly memorialize Jerry driving unless she was trying to create a record after the fact. In plain language, Taylor had snapped those photos because she needed someone else to be the driver. She needed Jerry to become the villain. She needed the picture to replace the truth. And that was the viral moment. The witness became the suspect. The person who walked in with proof became the person Judge Judy believed was covering her own tail. The courtroom could feel it. This was not just about a damaged car anymore. It was about the psychology of blame. When people panic, they often do not think about truth first. They think about survival. They think, how do I get out of this? Who can I point to? What evidence can I create? Taylor may have believed the photos were smart, but in that courtroom, they became the thing that exposed her. Because Judge Judy did not just look at what the evidence showed, she looked at why the evidence existed. That was the difference. A weak judge might see a picture of Jerry driving and stop there. Judge Judy asked, "Why was this picture taken?" And that question cracked the case open. But the punishment did not fall on Taylor alone. Judge Judy looked at the entire situation and saw a chain of bad decisions. Gwen owned the car and had no valid insurance. She said she thought she did, but she had failed to pay. Judge Judy did not let that slide for 1 second. To her, driving without insurance or giving someone else access to a car without proper insurance was not a small mistake. It was irresponsible. Taylor, according to Judge Judy's finding, had been driving when the accident happened. Jerry had taken the wheel afterward despite the alcohol and chaos. All of them had helped create the disaster. So Judge Judy made them share responsibility for the repair bill. The amount was $3,934, a heavy price. But honestly, the money was only part of it. The real punishment was being exposed. Taylor also had a counterclaim. She said she had been harassed and bullied over the car situation, but Judge Judy saw through that too. The conflict was not some random bullying campaign. It was connected to the damaged vehicle and Taylor's refusal to accept responsibility, so the counterclaim was dismissed. And then came the final sting. Judge Judy made it clear that the car owner's own behavior mattered too. No insurance meant no sympathy. If you do not insure your car, you do not hand over the keys and then act shocked when chaos follows. The courtroom laughed at moments, but underneath the humor was a hard lesson. A car is not a toy. Alcohol is not an excuse. A lie with photos is still a lie. And responsibility does not disappear just because 3 people start pointing at each other. By the end, nobody walked out looking clean. Jerry looked foolish. Gwen looked irresponsible. Taylor looked exposed. And Miss Connors finally had a judgment to repair the car. But the image that stayed in everyone's mind was not the crash itself. It was the moment Judge Judy realized the photos were not proof of innocence. They were proof of strategy. Taylor had tried to turn herself into the helpful witness. She came with a story, a timeline, and pictures. She wanted the court to believe she was the responsible one, caught between a reckless man and a damaged car. But Judge Judy saw the emotional math behind the lie. Why take the photos right after the accident? Why create evidence at exactly the moment Jerry took over? Why tell a story that sounded more polished every time it got challenged? The answer was simple: because the truth was catching up, and once it entered the courtroom, it did not leave quietly. This case became a lesson in how fast a victim mask can fall when the wrong question is asked. Not a loud question, not a complicated question, just one that cuts straight through the performance. Why did you take the picture? That was all it took, because sometimes the smallest question is the one that exposes the biggest lie. And by the time Judge Judy was finished, the message was impossible to miss. You can blame the weather. You can blame speed. You can blame alcohol. You can blame the person sitting next to you. But when your own actions create the disaster, the courtroom has a way of dragging the truth into the light. Taylor walked in trying to prove Jerry was the driver. She walked out with Judge Judy calling her the driver, the informant, and the one trying to cover herself. And that is why this case hit so hard, because it was not just about a car crash. It was about what people do in the seconds after they realize they may have ruined everything. Some people tell the truth, some people panic, and some people pull out their phone, take a picture, and hope the lie develops faster than the evidence. But in Judge Judy's courtroom, that picture did not save her, it exposed her.